going on, sports fans, and welcome to the very first edition of the Bettor's Almanac podcast. I am Matt Kowalis, here with my good friend Eric Pauly. Some of you know me from Detroit Sports Bettor, Sports Memo, Wager Talk, or the Channel 7 show. You know, you guys reached out in regards to the Detroit Sports Bettors podcast, asking for it to come back. So myself and Eric teamed up to bring you a new podcast with picks, plays, giveaways each week, and more. We are so pumped to get this going. And real quick, got to turn it over to my good friend Eric, who is so talented, one of the best minds in the sport. Eric, let's tell the people a little bit about yourself before we get going.
Yes, thank you for that intro, Matt. I'm excited as hell for the launch of this show. Matt and I have been working behind the scenes for like a month now, trying to get this all situated. And we'd like to thank PointsBet as well as Wager Talk and Sports Memo for giving us the platform for this show. I'm a handicapper on sportsmemo.com, as well as a host of shows on the Hammer HQ and a content creator for FTN Network. And man, I'm just excited to be here talking football, giving out free plays, and helping everybody here be winners.
Yeah, man, I'm so pumped as well. And like you said, got to shout out Sports Memo, Wager Talk for putting this on for us. And then, of course, our newest sponsor in PointsBet Sportsbook, who really is different. They're trying to give things back to the community and really just lucky and excited to partner with them going forward. And our first segment of the week is going to be the live dog that can fight, which is going to be an underdog team within the NFL that Eric and I, or, you know, we might debate a little bit too, we think has a chance to win. Before I get into that segment, I got to shout out our proud partner in PointsBet Sportsbook, because right now, if you ever wish you could get a second chance on a bet that didn't go your way, how about 5 of them? Well, now, if you sign up on PointsBet Sportsbook, use code Almanac to get 5 second chance bets up to $500. With PointsBet second chance bets, you get 5 straight days of second chances, where PointsBet will match your losing wager in free bets. That's promo code Almanac to get 5 second chances on any PointsBet betting types, including live betting features you won't find anywhere else. PointsBet, do it live. Offer not available in all states. T&Cs apply. See the promotions page and terms and conditions section of PointsBet website for more detail. Void where prohibited. Must be 21 plus or older. Call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services. Gambling problem? Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Woo! All right, now that shit's out of the way, let's get to the picks and plays. This week, guys, we have 4 $50 free bet winners. Okay, here's all you have to do. Place a same game parlay bet on the Sunday night football game. Minimum wager of $10. Eric and I will have posts on our Twitter. All you got to do is screenshot that, post below, and then after the Sunday night football game, we will pick those 5 $50 free bet winners. All right, we're also going to do a Cade Cunningham autograph poster, which I have behind me. So again, a lot of good shit going on this week. But with that being said, let's get to the live dog of the week segment. Eric, I heard we're debating a little bit on this one.
Yes, I just need the viewers at home to know, for those who know me, you know I am a Washington Commanders fan. New York born and raised. My father was born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland, and he was a Commanders fan, and I took that on. God knows why, because I've been nothing but disappointing since I've been alive and only looking like downhill from there. So it's funny because we were preparing for this show. I did a little analysis. I always break down the Commanders games every single week. I find that I think there's no shot in hell the Commanders are winning this week. I tell Matt, and he goes, dude, my live dog of the week is the Commanders on the money line. So I want to hear from you. What am I missing out that you are seeing on why you think the Commanders are going to win this football game? Because I have a bunch of reasons why I think the Titans are not only winning, but covering that 2.5-point spread.
No, 100%, man. And it's definitely one of those games where you can understand other point of views, because it's one of those picks where there's not a ton of science to it, if I'm being honest. And I think that's one good thing that people will see on this podcast. And one thing when people look at cappers from all over is everyone has their own style. And one thing with me, if people have watched me in the past, I really like to play the odds. I'm a huge odds guy. If you've missed a couple games in a row, I just think the statistics are in your favor. So I'm going to ride you on that third game. And this is kind of one of those games for the Washington Commanders. You know, the Washington Commanders are 1-3, facing a 2-2 Tennessee Titans team at home. The Washington Commanders team has looked absolutely dreadful. You know, they lost to the Dallas Cowboys last week. Didn't look all that good. But when I look at the Tennessee Titans, they're somewhat similar to me. I think they're one of those teams throughout the NFL that can have a day where they beat anyone, and they can also go out and lose to the Houston Texans. So in some ways, that's kind of what I'm thinking just might happen here in Washington. When looking at the Tennessee Titans' strengths and weaknesses and looking at the Washington Commanders' strengths and weaknesses, I do think the Commanders match up well with the Titans. And I say that with the fact, like, when you look at their offense, the Tennessee Titans are pretty good at stopping the run. But they're pretty weak in terms of secondary. They're also giving up 25 points per game. And if the Washington Commanders do have a strength, it's definitely on that offense. They do have some good skill positions now, with Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel. I love Curtis Samuel. I love what he can do as a scat back coming out of the backfield. He's someone that I really like in this game, and I think he's someone who can be a difference. And then when you take a look at the Commanders on defense, not like they're shining bright in any particular spot, but if they do have, I guess you could call it a strength, it would be their rushing defense. Their rushing defense is probably their strongest area on that defense. The Tennessee Titans can't pass the football very well. They have a lot of faith in Robert Woods right now, who's coming off that ACL injury. And then also Treylon Burks is doubtful in this game, so I think they're going to be even more limited. And because of that, I definitely give the Washington Commanders a fighting chance in this game. They're at home. I think it'll be a close one, and once the fourth quarter hits, I kind of feel like they might be in striking distance. So what about you?
Yeah, so I'm not going to disagree with anything you said in terms of matchup, because when I did this breakdown, they're certainly close teams, right? Washington has been abysmal. I was at the game in Philly, at the game against Philly in Washington, and it might as well have been in Philly because it was actually 65% Eagles fans at FedEx Field, and we got absolutely embarrassed. It was horrible. I was sitting there with a Philly PK and a teaser, though, so I was sitting there like bittersweet, like, damn, I'm watching my team get absolutely roasted. But I'm going to be making some money on this matchup. But where I find, so I'm a big look ahead lines guy. So I love the fact that you're playing the odds. I do that as well. But what I do is every week before that week is played, I'm already looking at the week after that, looking at the opening look ahead line, making my own projected look ahead line, and then comparing it to when it reopens. So, for example, before week 4 was played, but week 5 lines were out, my projected look ahead line for this game was Tennessee -3. The look ahead line was PK for this matchup. I was like, okay, maybe I'm overvaluing Tennessee a little bit. After that beatdown that Washington suffered against the Cowboys, and after that win for the Titans against the Colts, where they didn't play that well, but they won, this game reopened at Tennessee -3, and now it's sitting at 2.5 realistically across the board. The Titans, they have coming off those 2 ugly wins. You mentioned that they're letting up 25 points per game, but a little bit of that is skewed because of that beatdown they suffered by the Buffalo Bills. And this is not an explosive Titans offense whatsoever. They're first in the NFL in red zone percentage, but if you look at their scoring this season, every single touchdown they've had has come from within 20 yards in the red zone. They have not made any big plays past the red zone to score any touchdowns. Of course, Derrick Henry's going to be running that football, but peeling back the onion a bit again, the Titans are 9th in the NFL right now in passing DVOA. They've allowed just 7 sacks. So while Tannehill has been asked to throw not too much, when he has been asked to throw, he's been effective. But something also to note about the Titans is they've scored 68 points in the first half and only 7 points in the second half of the season, none in the fourth quarter. In 4 games, they have yet to put up a single point in the fourth quarter. But the reason why I'm not too concerned about this is because, yeah, Tennessee's been dominating in the first half, but Washington has been horrible defensively in the first half, allowing 61 first half points so far this season. On defense, the Titans are 13th in red zone defense, 5th and 3rd down, which is great. But the strength of their team is their defensive line, and they're the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL like they were last year. They're there again, but like you mentioned, a great point, Titans pass defense is bad. They allow a 67.8% completion percentage and 7.7 yards per attempt, which is actually 29th in the NFL. So just from that, you would think like, all right, maybe the Commanders are a live dog, but Carson Wentz, man, that offense is 30th in the NFL on DVOA. Been sacked the most times, as well as a couple of intentional grounding penalties, which might as well be sacks. So that number can really round up to 20. Wentz in Indianapolis lost to the Titans twice last season and looked particularly bad in both of those games. Washington is missing Chase Roullier, their starting center. Their starting right tackle, Sam Cosmi, just went to the IL. And their right guard, they decided to replace halfway through the game against the Cowboys because he was not getting the job done. So you have Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, and some of those other guys coming at Carson Wentz. I have no reason to believe that Washington is going to be able to stop these guys. Yes, they could do the quick passing game like they did against Dallas, but that's not going to win you football games, as we can see. And Carson Wentz is a horrible play waiting to happen at all times. But something I do want to mention also, on the defensive side of the ball, Washington is 24th in defensive DVOA. That's only because they're always on the field. Looking at the numbers a little bit in more detail, when Washington needs stops, they get stops. They're first in average drive time and first in plays allowed, which means, again, they're very good at getting those 3 and outs when they need it. The problem is they are on the field all the damn time. And also, they're second to last in the league in average defensive drive starting position. So the offense is doing them no favors. Pile that off with the fact that Mike Vrabel, the defending coach of the year last season, is one of the best coaches in the NFL, bar none. Ron Rivera, if you've seen any of those interviews of this past week, he's been saying this since he was hired over 1,000 days ago. This doesn't take, this isn't a quick turnaround. Nothing, this happens overnight. It's been 3 goddamn years, dude. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I think in terms of the coaching edge, the teams match up. But given the coaching, and I think Rivera's lost that locker room a little bit, it's very hard to back tennis. It's very hard to back Washington here. Very hard to back Washington here.
No, and I completely understand that. And you bring up some great points. Carson Wentz for me is the biggest downfall. When you look at this Washington Commanders team, and you definitely see some things you like, but in the back of your mind, you're always like, okay, is Carson Wentz going to take care of the football? Is he going to throw a pick? Is he going to have a strip sack fumble or something like that? And that's another. When I look at Tennessee as well, I don't think Ryan Tannehill is to that point, but he's also someone I'm like, if you get him in a bad position, if you get them down early or something along those lines, I could see him making some mistakes as well. But to your point, this is one of those games where I think either team can definitely go out and win it. I think in terms of coaching, Tennessee definitely there's not even a debate there. They have the edge, no doubt. I'm playing the odds. I like having one of those situations that I think is good for a bounce back. I think being at home, like you said, in Washington, not always completely
non-existent home field advantage.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm thinking that when they come back at home, they can get it going. Again, it's an odds play plus 115 on PointsBet Sportsbook right now. And I think it's a good one. I like that we're split first start in the show. We get to debate a little bit because it's one of those that when I've done my research before going into this, it's very split. People are going both ways on this. And if you can pick either team, you're going to get a good starter, get a good price, and, get a parlay going, anything like that. So I have the Commanders to start, and Eric has the Tennessee Titans. So
yes, sir.
Let's go with the play of the week. Let's have you swing off, start with this one.
Yeah, so we have a big game breakdown segment we're going to do every week where we're going to take on some of our favorite matches of the week. And where my eye is looking is on the Cleveland Browns hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. This was sitting +3 all week, but is now creeping down to 2.5 and 2 at some shops. And I definitely agree with that line movement. So my projected look ahead for this game was LAC -3. The look ahead was LAC -1. Okay, I totally understand. The reopen line after week 4 was played was LAC -3, and it was sitting there. And now it has crept down to 2.5. And I think this line movement is totally justified. I didn't take Brown spread disclaimer. I actually have them in a teaser with the Broncos and the Buccaneers for this weekend. And going back to that Washington game, that Tennessee bet is actually a 3% play. My biggest bet so far of the NFL season is betting against my Commanders this week. And time will tell because I definitely expected that line to move. Whatever, digression aside, the Chargers, don't get me wrong, front top to bottom, they are talented as hell. But the injuries they're dealing with to Bosa, Rashawn Slater, and Keenan Allen, who's been banged up all year, is tough. And though the Chargers won that game against Houston, what that really showed is this is a one-dimensional offense. Better that they're one-dimensional in the fact that they can pass the ball well, but Eckler only having 60 yards on the ground versus the 29th ranked Houston run defense is now has to go against the 30th ranked run defense, which means maybe they would have a better shot at running the football. But the Browns are going to know that they're going to try to throw the ball all day long. They could try to establish that run, and while the Browns aren't good at it, they're certainly happier letting off maybe 5 yards a carry compared to letting Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter get open down the field. But this LA defense is what really is kind of concerning me right now. They're 30th in points allowed, 20th in total yards allowed, 31st in rushing yards per attempt, which is a 6.8 yards per carry to running backs. When you're playing Nick Chubb, that's not going to cut it. They have 11 sacks this year, and they're actually pretty good at defending wide receivers and tight ends, which the Browns utilize Amari Cooper and David Njoku a ton. But man, this Browns offense, they lead the league right now in possessions, yards, and first downs accumulated. They run that ball at a 53% clip because why wouldn't you? You got Nick Chubb in that backfield. Jacoby Brissett's been sacked just 5 times this year, and the Browns have the 5th highest adjusted sack rate in the NFL. They have scored most of their points in the second and fourth quarter of games, and they're first in the NFL in time per drive, 3rd in plays per drive, and 5th in points per drive. So you got Jacoby Brissett, obviously. He's not letting up any stat sheet for anything like that. But this is a team that's going to control the clock like they did in Atlanta in that loss. They're going to rack up yardage like they did against Atlanta, unfortunately, in that loss. And they're going to be in the thick of every game. What really concerns me, though, is their rushing defense that they struggle in. Like I mentioned, 30th in the league in total rushing DVOA. They're 29th in rushing touchdowns allowed, 18th in rush yards per attempt, and 28th in yards per carry allowed. So you can certainly run the ball on this team. But again, Stefanski and the Browns are okay with you running the football as long as you're not duking them for 50-yard gains down the field, which their pass defense is good. It's not great. Considering the way the line moved and that I was on the Browns when I initially, wrote my breakdown for this game, and I anticipated this line going closer to the Browns, so I'm happy to be on the right side of the market. And I'm not saying the Browns are going to come out and win this football game, but getting +3 on Cleveland at home against the Chargers team that's played in domes and in good weather, though it might not be such bad weather in Cleveland this weekend, I think the Cleveland Browns are certainly going to cover this 3-point spread and are potentially live dogs. I went the teaser route for this matchup, but Matt, do you have any thoughts on that? You think I'm out of pocket here? You think the Chargers Herbert's going to rip them a new one? What are you thinking about this one?
Honestly, again, you're bringing up some really good points, and I'm one of those bettors, I guess you could say, where in the preseason, I always do my futures. I do my my preseason divisional breakdowns, things of that nature. If I am high on you, it's like I'm going to go down with that ship. And the Chargers are that team where I'm going to go down with that ship. And everything that you say lines up perfect. The Chargers tend to get away from the run game a lot of the time as well. If they struggle early in the game, they kind of throw it out the window. And that's going to benefit the Cleveland Browns, to your point. So as you were talking, I was just kind of shaking my head yeah, he's right. He's right. So I'm in the same boat. As much as I don't want to, I would go with the Cleveland Browns because I had the Chargers over 10.5 wins this year. And with, like you said, with all the injuries and stuff, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and they made those acquisitions, J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, some other players to strengthen that run defense that was worse than the NFL last year. They didn't get any better.
No, 100%. And and what people need to realize is when someone like Joey Bosa is out for the game or Rashawn Slater, those are such big factors to your football team. Joey Bosa, that completely changes your defensive scheme at times. You go from rushing 4 and now you have to run a blitz package. You might have to run a zone blitz, a man blitz package. It's completely different without someone like Joey Bosa, who's just a dynamic talent. But I actually had a question for you as well. And as you were talking, it made me think about Nick Chubb because, one thing we're doing on this podcast for our listeners is we want to talk some player props. We want to talk some teasers. We want to talk some same game parlays. That is what's in with sports gambling right now. Of course, we're going to give you the money lines, the spreads, and all that shit. But we want to talk the props. We want to talk the crazy same game parlays as well. But as you were talking, I was thinking about Nick Chubb, and I didn't look at his number. I'd assume it'd be probably 84.5, somewhere in that ballpark. Where would you go with that one in this game if you were looking at that prop?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be around 84.5, 85, 86 yards. I think that this is a situation where the betting market knows that this Chargers defense is horrific against the run and the Cleveland Browns offense is amazing against the run, similar to last week when they played Atlanta. So I think this number is already inflated. Okay. However, so I don't feel comfortable taking that 86.5. I'm looking really just toward the Browns in this game, but Nick Chubb could easily crank out 150 yards on the ground this game, and I would not be shocked whatsoever.
Yeah, no doubt. He's on a ton of my fantasy teams. And again, you bring up a great point. And I think some of those who are listening have definitely been following us, past couple of weeks or past couple of years, whatever it may be. And the only reason I say that is because last week, Justin Jefferson was one of my player props. And the reason I chose Justin Jefferson's player prop, it was 82.5, was he missed 2 weeks in a row. So you're going to have that line naturally come down a little bit. You're going to get a better price. And then once again, you're just playing the odds. And to Eric's point right now with Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb's been absolutely on fire. So that number is going to be inflated. More and more people are going to bet him because of how hot he's been, which is going to push that number up even higher, making it that much more difficult to hit.
Certainly, totally agree. Let's head over to you now. You have a big game breakdown talking about the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles. Talk to me, Matt. What are you liking here?
Yeah, so this is one where, on paper, I don't know how much people are going to like this pick, but I have the Arizona Cardinals here plus 5.5. This line has gone, up and down. I've seen it go to 5. I've seen it come back up to 5.5. So I'm happy to see that it's moving like that. But one thing I will say, Marquise Brown is questionable for this game. If he misses this game, I am off so fast. Like, I am just getting away from this game. I am not touching it. Marquise Brown has become very essential to this Arizona Cardinals team, with Kyler Murray in particular, because he is that absolute burner. He's been very good on the in cuts. He's been kind of good all over the place. Then Zach Ertz has been playing kind of that middle game where he's just sitting down in those zones. Kyler Murray is going to find him, but this game is against the Philadelphia Eagles, and as everyone knows, the Philadelphia Eagles are now 4-0 in the 2022 season. The best team in the NFL in my eyes currently. When I grade a lot of NFL teams, I look at that offensive line, I look at that defensive line. I don't think anyone throughout the NFL has the combination that the Philadelphia Eagles have in terms of offensive line and in terms of defensive line. But through 4 weeks of the NFL season, the Eagles really haven't had a close game. You look back to week 1 in Detroit, yeah, it ended up being a 3-point game, but was that game all that close? It was kind of Detroit getting a backdoor cover, Eagles letting their foot off the pedal a little bit. So now when I look at this Arizona Cardinals game, the Philadelphia Eagles just faced the Jacksonville Jaguars. They came back from 14 points at home in a rainy game, in a cold game, and now they travel across the country to Arizona. Okay, one thing I want to say as well, with the Philadelphia Eagles, they are 4-0. They have not faced one run-style quarterback just yet. I think that is what Kyler Murray is. And he is going to be the difference in this game. If the Arizona Cardinals cover the spread, if they come, because I actually consider Arizona a live dog. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are in a classic letdown spot right now. They're traveling across the country after an emotional game, 4-0 start to the season, and really haven't had a close game just yet. And when you look at history, I'd say you are going to have that close game at some point in time. In addition to that, when looking at that Philadelphia Eagles defense, they do have some injuries to somewhat be weary about. Their number 1 corner in Darius Slay, he has potential to miss. Their third cornerback in Avonte Maddox will most likely miss in week 5. So if those two guys miss, that means that Marquise Brown is going to get a very favorable matchup. Kyler Murray is the type of player who can get outside the pocket and extend plays, something that the Philadelphia Eagles have yet to see. Once again, they have not played that quarterback that can get outside the pocket, spin real quick when you think you got a sack, and then all of a sudden you don't. So I think Kyler Murray is going to do a good job extending plays. This is also a team that has been in almost every game, and they have started slow as shit. In the first half, the Arizona Cardinals haven't been scoring. They've actually been coming back on teams in a much better second half team. I actually don't expect that in this game. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Arizona Cardinals start hot, and I actually think it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles who have to play catch up and come back in the second half. I do like the Philadelphia Eagles to get this done. I think they are that good. But I like the Arizona Cardinals to cover the spread. And I really do believe this is a live dog situation.
So going back to one of those points you make, 'cause I saw it circulating on Twitter, and I think it's something that should certainly be looked at. So in the 2022 Eagles have a plus 57 first half point differential, while the 2022 Cardinals have a minus 50 first half differential. You touched on the fact that you think that's not going to be the case of this game. And right now I am seeing Eagles -3 at most shops for a first half wager. Is that something you're considering fading as well, if you're going with the potential, first half plus money and the full game spread, or is that not even on your mind?
Honestly, when you saying that though actually makes me feel better, because I thought that number would be like a 3.5, a 4, or something along those lines. So that makes me think the odds makers are kind of thinking the same thing as myself, where Arizona might be a live dog here. and they might be able to cover that spread. In terms of first half, yeah, I would take that because I do think the Arizona Cardinals are going to come out much hotter than in weeks past. And I think that number actually somewhat backs that. But I am more confident with that plus 5.5. I think this is going to be one of those games that comes down to the fourth quarter. I think this is going to be a tight game going into the fourth quarter. One thing I did not talk about is J.J. Watt as well. He's finally getting back to his full reps. And he's someone who is very similar. TJ Watt is right now obviously the superior player. But when he is on and off the field, TJ Watt in particular, it's insane. It's a 5-point swing. It's literally a 5-point swing, and their win percentage is just I think it's around 33% with TJ Watt off the field, and the Steelers around 55% with him on the field, which is just a crazy difference. But when looking at the Arizona Cardinals, it's somewhat similar with that of J.J. Watt. He is that big of a difference. And if he can get those hands up, knock a couple balls down, get that tip pass that maybe the Arizona Cardinals intercept, get prime field position. Also, he hasn't had a sack just yet. I think this is a great game for J.J. Watt to get to Jalen Hurts and get him on the ground. They're going to need J.J. Watt and this defense to step up in order to cover the spread. And I like them to. I like them to take this step forward.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great point. As you know, with the NFL, I mean, odds makers, they don't leave any stones unturned, right? Player prop markets are sharp as hell. First half, first quarter, anything you're looking at. Field goal props are sharp as hell now in the NFL, of course. So yeah. I actually really like that breakdown and the angle you're going with. I think that while they could certainly cover the spread, the Cardinals, that the Eagles are just a far superior team, top to bottom, talent-wise, roster-wise. So I'm very curious to see how this works out because, like you said, the Cardinals are sort of in a bounce-back spot the way they played that second half, dominated a horrific Panthers team, an absolute, they're so god-awful. But no, I think I love where you're coming for that angle. And I think there's certainly some value in that home underdog getting 5.5. You can get 6 potentially. If that comes back, it's trending closer to 5. So if you're going for that bet, I think you should definitely look for that 5.5 immediately.
No, and I totally agree with you. And I feel like these 5.5-point spreads are like these sweet spots as well. Like I remember last year as well, the Tennessee Titans against the Kansas City Chiefs, Sunday Night Football. Tennessee Titans were a 5.5-point spread getting 5.5 at home, won that game outright. This year, Indianapolis Colts, Kansas City Chiefs again. Colts, 5.5-point spread at home, won that game outright. So I don't know. I'm just, you know how I am. I like to play the odds. I like to play those comebacks, and I think this is a pretty good spot for it. Cardinals looked pretty. I mean, Panthers are just absolutely dreadful. They are brutal. But I mean, the Cardinals went in there. They won that game. The defense played well. They moved the football well. So I think they're a little higher coming into this game. I think some things are clicking a little bit more. They might be looking and seeing that DeAndre Hopkins is coming soon. So I like them to play well here. I like them to cover this spread.
Totally feel that. So moving to the final segment of the show, we're going to be discussing our favorite player prop plays of the week. I'm going to keep mine short and sweet, and I'm rolling with somebody who was on absolute fire and is certainly the favorite to win the comeback player of the year. I am eyeing in London against the Green Bay Packers, Saquon Barkley, who I'm proudly a fantasy owner of this year, and I'm happy I made that pick because I normally fade the crap out of Saquon, believing he's going to get hurt and that coming out the draft, I'm like, Darius Geis is a better running back. The Skins, the Commanders' second-round pick, who unfortunately didn't end up having an NFL career due to injuries and some off-the-field stuff that we don't need to get into. But plain and simple on this play, Saquon Barkley is the heart and soul of the New York Giants. And while I hate the Giants more than I hate almost everything possible, being in New York surrounded by Giants fans who have no clue what the hell they're talking about and love to just tout their team. I have friends who watch maybe 1 or 2 games a season and they're going to the Super Bowl parade. Like, dude, you don't even know what's going on. You can't even name 10 players on this roster. Yeah. Digression aside, they're going against the Green Bay defense that's 28th in the league in rushing DVOA. They just let up 167 rushing yards to New England, and they allow 118 rushing yards per game. I don't know why the hell Saquon's at 75.5. The only reason and justification I can see is that if Daniel Jones is hurt and even Tyrod Taylor are both either not suiting up or they're suiting up and are injured, that Green Bay can stuff that box and, know that it's going to Saquon and do whatever they can to stop Saquon. But I don't think Saquon right now is stoppable. He's went over this total in 3 out of the 4 games this season. He is running like an absolute madman. All those cuts, jump cuts, everything is vision, the way he's getting to the outside, going up the middle. He is really looking like that Saquon of old, which while he'll never in a million years justify the draft spot he was taken in, he still is a hell of a talent. I think that this line is still undervalued, considering, again, I know that the Packers will be looking at Saquon because he's the only weapon on the Giants, because obviously Sterling Shepard's hurt. Galladay might as well be. He's a missing person. He's on a milk box somewhere. Kadarius Toney's on the IL. Wan'Dale Robinson's a good player, but again, no need to really overthink this one. 75.5 yards is too low for Saquon, even on a neutral field against a good Packers defense, but they can't stop the run. I'm going over on that number for Saquon.
Yeah, Eric, I like that too, because last week when looking at the Green Bay Packers, I watched that whole game against the New England Patriots. I was honestly shocked with how bad they were at stopping the run. New England was picking up 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards a chunk with both Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson just at ease. And it was one of those games where I'm like, they're facing a third string quarterback right now. Why aren't they just stacking the hell out of this box and stuffing the run? And they weren't. So I was pretty surprised with that. And I like the Saquon Barkley pick because, like you said, he is that one running back in all of football where if I wanted one guy, a play completely breaks down, people chopping at your ankles, guy on your back, Saquon Barkley is the guy you want to get out of that and to make a play. I think he's the biggest playmaker of any running back in the NFL right now.
Yeah, totally. And I think he's going to go over this total. Now, heading to you, though, you're looking at that Jacksonville game this weekend. Talk to me. You're looking at James Robinson. What do you like about him?
I am. I really like James Robinson this week. Like we've talked about before, I love playing that bounce back spot. Had a rough outing against the Philadelphia Eagles last week, and, we've touched on the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles in the trenches are probably the best team in football in terms of defensive line, in terms of offensive line. If you're thinking about taking a player prop against the Philadelphia Eagles, especially a running back, I would just stay away from it. Same with San Francisco 49ers. But James Robinson has a much favorable matchup against the Houston Texans this week. The Houston Texans, once again, last year they couldn't stop the run for shit. 2022, they still can't stop the run for shit. I believe they're 31st throughout the NFL in terms of stopping the run. And James Robinson's over-under is 61.5 yards right now on PointsBet Sportsbook. He has hit this in 3 out of 4 games this season. And last week was the one he missed against the Eagles. In Jaguars wins, James Robinson has been the bell cow. He's averaging around 19 carries per game. I think this game does set up well for Jacksonville. And I kept going back and forth on that spread, like that 7-point spread for Jacksonville at home. If it got to a hook, I might take the Texans. But I think it does set up well for a Jacksonville win. When Jacksonville is at their best, they're giving James Robinson that ball. And he has proven to be the best player on that team in terms of rushing the football in comparison to Travis Etienne. I like Travis Etienne as well, but he seems like more of like the third down guy, can catch out of the backfield, things of that nature. So I believe James Robinson is going to be the early down back, the first down, second down. He still gets some third down work as well. But this Houston Texans team is so soft on defense in terms of rushing defense that I think this is going to be an easy one for James Robinson. I think the Jaguars get up early as well, and because of that, they give James Robinson the football even more. James Robinson is one of those guys where you got to understand this. When they draft someone like Travis Etienne, James Robinson is coming off a terrible, I believe it was an Achilles injury. Yeah, he's coming off that Achilles tear, missed like majority of the season. The Jaguars really don't want to start him. Like, let's be honest. They really don't want to start him. He's coming off that injury. They got Travis Etienne. He's just playing that good of football right now where he's taken that job back, and he's the better running back in comparison to Travis Etienne. So, obviously, the Jaguars are very confident in him. I believe James Robinson is confident in himself, to come back like that. So I like him going over the 61.5 yards. He's playing some good football right now. I like what Jacksonville is doing this year. Jacksonville looks like a much improved team. I don't know if they're a playoff team or anything like that just yet, but you can see that they're making a stride, taking that step forward. And I'm liking some of the coaching as well.
Yeah, Doug Pearson's done a great job with that ship. Trevor Lawrence has gotten incrementally a little bit better, but he still has a lot to work on realistically. And I'm actually looking at a live odds screen right now, and the spread on the Tennessee Titans Commanders game has fallen to -2 on PointsBet Sportsbook, and it's sitting at 2 and even 1.5 at some shops. So while we are literally speaking, there's, I guess, money coming in on the Commanders, bringing that spread down, which is kind of mind-boggling to me, and I'm upset that I am on the wrong side of that line movement. But,
interesting. Real quick to touch on some line movement this week, there has been a good amount. I posted a play with the LA Rams. I believe it was originally I got it at 4, and that's up to 5.5 now. This line opened at, was it 2.5 or 3?
It opened at 3, and now it's down to 1.5 at some shops.
Tampa Bay opened at 8, up to 9.5.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of movement this week.
There's a lot of movement. There are some games, and I am tight. I really thought that Tennessee Titans game was going to go 3 and not the other way, but I'm staring at it as it happens right in front of my eyes. You're seeing 2s and 1.5s now across the board. When we started recording 35 minutes ago, it was at 2.5s across the board. So just like that is how quickly these guys move, as we all should know. Got to respect the betting market at all times. And when you're looking at it right in front of your face and see that happening, it's I'm not too happy, but we'll see what happens.
No, 100%. And this is one of those weeks though where I am I don't know how you are, I am a little heavier this week. Last week I had 4 NFL plays. This week I think I have 7 loaded already. And to be completely honest with our listeners and things like that, Eric and I are both from Sports Memo and Wager Talk. We do have plays that and clients that pay for our plays. But again, to be completely upfront and honest, Arizona Cardinals is one of my plays with Sports Memo this week. So I'm giving you guys one of my official plays on Sports Memo. The Washington Commanders are one of my plays on Sports Memo this week. So really what we want to do is we want to give you guys the best plays possible on this podcast. We're giving out free bets with PointsBet Sportsbook. We got 4 $50 free bet winners. Next week, someone will win $200. So we're going to switch the structure of it too. So like next week, someone will win 200. Week after, someone will win 4 people win 50 again. And then the week after, we will be giving away a $400 free bet. So all I'm saying, guys, is if you need some picks and plays with those free bets, feel free to check us out over at Sports Memo. Feel free to check us out at Wager Talk. A ton of plays going on over there. Paid plays, free picks and plays, a little bit of everything. I'm telling you, Sports Memo and Wager Talk is the future of sports betting and sports gambling.
Yeah, I want to thank PointsBet as well as Wager Talk for sponsoring this show. We'll be going and doing a show that'll go live every single Thursday. So make sure you subscribe, you turn notifications on, and make sure you comment, because we're going to select 4 random subscribers and commenters to receive those free bets. We're also going to open up a mailbag coming up soon again, we have these free bets locked and loaded. We need to give out to somebody. So, put yourself in that running for free bets. And if you need a PointsBet account, sign up with the code Almanac to get that promotion that Matt mentioned earlier in the show.
Yep, 100%, Eric. And as well, one last thing that I did not touch on is to be eligible for the free bets, you have to subscribe to the podcast, follow PointsBet, follow Eric, follow myself. And that's something you want to do anyways, because we're going to be the ones posting the podcast. We're going to be the ones kind of letting you guys know what the prizes are going to be, when we're going to draw, stuff like that. So again, got some really good stuff coming for everyone. We're really excited to get this podcast going. Want to give just top-notch picks and plays as well. So for me, let's go. If you're with me, at least, let's go Commanders. Let's go Cardinals. Let's go James Robinson. So again, going over those plays, that's Cardinals plus 5.5. That's Commanders money line for me, and that's James Robinson over 61.5 yards.
I'm rocking with the Titans minus 2.5, which now is sitting 1.5. So definitely go grab that better number. I'm in the doghouse with that one. I'm riding Saquon over 75.5 rush yards, and I like the Browns plus 3. That 3 is not readily available, but at 2.5 point home dogs, they're a great add to a 6-point teaser as a leg. So I recommend them as that leg. If you find a 3 at around minus 110, you should certainly go in that direction as well. But yeah, that's what I'm rocking with this week.
Hell yeah. Well, it's been a great first episode. I want to shout out everyone from Detroit Sports Bettors as well who reached out to me asking if the podcast was coming back, saying that they were a fan of it. I greatly appreciate you guys. Getting those messages means the world, and it just kind of gives you that extra push to get something going, and me and Eric are really excited to get this Bettor's Almanac podcast going. A lot of work went into this, and it just feels good to release this first episode.
Hell yeah. Thank you to all listeners, and looking forward to providing you guys with more winners, more shows, more free bets, and a hell of a time.
Hell yeah, guys. Have a good one.